Fearless and truthful. Provocative and controversial.
We say it like it really is.
With dignity and respect.
Committed to free speech and common sense. Upbeat and entertaining.
Straight talking and direct.
We may agitate each other and you.
Thought-provoking, heartfelt and passionate.
Hello and welcome to The Pledge. Joe Lycett hit the headlines this week after revealing he'd made a monumental decision. The comedian took to Twitter to voice his outrage over German fashion company Hugo Boss allegedly targeting small businesses who use the word boss in their names. Rather than get mad, the funny man decided to get even by legally changing his name to, you guessed it, Hugo Boss. Which got me thinking about what my fellow panellists could be called to highlight things they disagree with. Femi, you could be Will of the people. Nick, I'm ordering you to be John Bercow. And Rachel, it's only right that you honour the Iron Lady herself, Margaret Thatcher. Coming up on the programme, Greg's hearing the chime of wedding bells. Rachel thinks we need to do more to help youngsters from ethnic minority backgrounds. I'm saying convicted domestic abusers should be forced to take lie detector tests. And Femi is all for girl power. But first, it's Nick.
The only thing missing was a declaration of war. A stony-faced Prime Minister, flanked by equally grim-faced advisers gravely intoning details of fatality rates and predicted infection levels. Yes, this is the nation's response to coronavirus, with the main thrust being an attempt to contain, delay and mitigate. Some of the measures that might be taken include police only investigating serious crime, calling in the army, routine operations being cancelled and no-go zones being created. On the one hand, the government is keen to stress there's no need to panic and everything is under control. And yet on the other, it announces deeply troubling plans such as these. Meanwhile, as schools close, airlines cancel flights and collapse, stock exchange around the globe wobble, and stores run out of products such as hand gel and face masks, the media is under attack for running so-called scare stories. Surely it's our job to tell you what's going on, or have we unwittingly added to the chaos?
Well, I think I've changed my mind. A couple of weeks ago, I thought that we were, as the media, unwittingly helping the chaos. But I think the chaos is upon us. And I don't think the media now is exaggerating what's around. I think there's something quite serious going on. What is worrying about, what is it going to do to the economy in all sorts of places, in all sorts of countries? I've just noticed myself, in my own life, I think 5 things I was supposed to be doing in the next 10 days have been cancelled, which included...
What sort of events?
Well, one was going skiing with a bunch of people.
Right, OK.
The people who organised it decided they didn't want us all to be in one place at the same time. I was supposed to be going to a thing at a university tonight, and I found out that there were 20 there, and I was the only one still going. And I do think there is a degree of panic going on, but I'm not sure whether it's right or wrong.
Before I move it on, because you've been in the news business even longer than I have, how does the media exercise responsibility in a situation like this? Because get it wrong, and we have now seen panic buying of toilet rolls, I mentioned hand gel, face. If you get it wrong, you actually frighten the people.
Yes, I had to go look back to all sorts of things. If there was a shortage of bread, you knew you were going to create runs on...
One Rottweiler attacks somebody, and they're biting everybody. Yeah,
and there's always that danger. But I think what we're in the middle of is something quite serious, more than serious than perhaps people like myself gave it credit for. There's quite an interesting stat which I quite like. Which measures have you taken to protect yourself from coronavirus? 54% said nothing.
Really?
Now, I think I'm in that 54%.
Okay.
Right? I don't think I've done anything. Improve personal hygiene, 35%. Avoid crowded public places, 14%. avoid physical contact with tourists.
How do you know as a tourist?
I don't have physical contact with tourists as far as I know.
I want to ask you, well, you can either ask about your personal hygiene or the responsibility of the media and the markets. Have the markets been spooked because of the global news coverage?
Yes, and when you look at people's companies' share prices, you're seeing losses, declines in many areas. So yes, of course, it's impacting the market. But to your central point, is the media fueling this chaos? Absolutely. And what's missing?
Absolutely, we are?
Yeah. And what's missing for me is context. So absolutely, the media should be reporting and updating us on what's going on with corona, but minute by minute, second by second, tallies of who's contracted the virus and using all manner of scare headlines and words and, you know, people dashing out. And there's shortages, as you said, I think it's in Australia, of toilet paper.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think two things need to happen. I think that the media need to understand context because, yes, this is spreading, but the amount of people that are dying or getting critically ill because of this, it's a very small number.
Femi.
I would never try and downplay the seriousness of this. Aside from my asthma, I'm not in the age group that's most likely to die from that. But I would say that there is a difference between if there's a fire in a building, if you shout, here's the exit, here's the exit, here's the exit, you're being constructive. If you shout, you're all going to die, you're all going to die, that's creating
What's
panic.
the media doing? Which one is it doing?
The media, with the fact that there's no need to report 4 more cases found as the headline.
Why?
Because we don't need that. That shouldn't be.
How do you confront a problem if you don't know the size?
That shouldn't be its own news story. The focus should be government says do this. That's not. You're not helping people do anything by saying 4 more cases as a separate news story. Yes, this story should include that, but.
OK. Rachel, do you not think you can only confront a problem if you know its size, i.e. we've got X number of cases and now it's X plus Y, and whatever? You don't see that?
I think a lot of it is to do with tone and measure, and I do just want to show you this from the Evening Standard, just to look at the kind of reporting that we have. I think this is really sensationalist and there's no need for it. This kind of terminology, war footing, is not necessary. Look, I think that the media at times like this becomes, you know, it's even more important as a public service, you know, and it has a public service requirement to give us the information that we need to manage and reduce the risk of this virus. And one of the things, I mean, you may have noticed that I'm not a big fan of the government. I may have mentioned it once or twice, but I was impressed with, you know, they're starting to have announcements and advertising, and one of the adverts that they've got coming out now is a visual about hand washing and the frequency with which we need to wash our hands. But they used a visual of a doorknob that is, you know, obviously a surface that, you know, gets, it's a virus, it's a petri dish essentially. And they found that actually using that visual had more power because the reaction is disgust than just saying you should wash your hands, you should wash your hands. So I like that they have taken that consideration and taken advice on what the most impactful public messaging is.
Let's just see what the government's saying before I bring Greg back in. Health Secretary Matt Hancock, we all have a role to play in stopping this disease. Washing hands regularly is the single most important thing that an individual can do. Public safety remains our top priority. The government and the NHS are working 24/7 to fight this virus. It's imperative that everyone follows clinical advice by contacting NHS 111 and not going to A&E if you develop symptoms. It's funny, isn't it, Greg? A little while ago, we didn't need experts anymore, but the Prime Minister earlier this week found himself flanked by 2. Suddenly they're back in vogue, experts.
He needs someone to take account, doesn't he? He needs someone to take the responsibility.
But the media's under attack here, Greg.
Right.
Apparently we're not reporting it right.
I think it's very difficult for the media in these circumstances because I think all of us are fixated by this. At this particular moment, and therefore I think the media inevitably going to report. I'm not sure you want headlines like that, but I do think that it is inevitable that the media will report it because we want it reported.
Yeah.
I don't think we're all fixated by it. I'm not fixated by it. Are you?
No. Have you changed any aspect of... I'm going to go around really quickly. You haven't, have you? Have you bought hand gel or wash your hands more or whatever?
No, but what I would say is...
Have you stopped hugging tourists?
No, I mean, I'd love a hug off a tourist if anyone wants to hug me, quite frankly. But what I would say is I'm getting on a flight after this show, and I'm going to Spain, and I've actually started thinking to myself, oh God, I'm going to be in an airport where everyone's been everywhere, and do I need to get a mask?
So it has had an impact on you?
Yeah, but I think that's ridiculous attitude from me.
Greg
so that's
right.
scaremongering.
But Greg is right, hasn't it? So it has had. You are thinking about it.
Yeah, but not in a good way.
No, but no, it doesn't have to be positive. Have you changed your life?
It's made me think a lot more about hand washing, and also it's made me think a lot more about my phone, because that is also a massive petri dish, apparently. But can I just say that I think that you've raised an interesting point when you talk about experts, because in a social context, we're being asked, in a society where we've been encouraged to be individualistic, and the government has undermined our trust in experts, we are now being required to act collectively and on the basis of advice from experts. So it's quite a change.
So, I must ask, have you changed your life?
When I was ill, I self-isolated myself, so I was worried. So I didn't see my flatmate, didn't really go outside much, didn't go to the shops, specifically because I was worried, what if it happens to be that? So I have done some change. But I think the media has the power to use their headlines to say, hand gels with alcohol in them specifically. For example, I think it's a really good thing that we are seeing some empty shelves that where the hand gels used to be.
Why is it good to see empty shelves? That just causes panic, doesn't it?
Well, no. It means that people are doing the one thing that can slow the spread of this virus, buying hand gels more so than we usually do.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this is obviously going to run and run, this story. I mean, I don't know when it ends. I mean, and there's all sorts of things I think that come into question about sporting events, about theatres, about I don't know what happens. Do you keep cinemas open? All these things are going to be discussed in the weeks as it moves on.